Category 2 funeral is set to get underway at the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Ground in Dondota in KwaZulu-Natal. Nathi Mthethwa died at a Paris hotel last month, aged 58. Police are still probing the circumstances surrounding his death. At the time of his death, he was South Africa's ambassador to France. Our very own Zianda Ngcobo is at the Mthethwa home in Gwambonambi and will give us the latest from the family home. We also have from the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Complex, Limkambi, as well as Sleti Wendlovu to give us an update as the cortege moves to that area. Let's start things off with Zianda Ngcobo. Zianda, just the family having had such a torrid time of late, of course, having looked to try and get his body repatriated, the investigation still, and all of those investigating officers that were meant to go all the way to France, and that only now being one, the circumstances around his passing, but the family today putting all of that to the side and saying it's time to celebrate his life.
Absolutely, Arabile, and we're just going to show you how preparations are still underway. And as you can see, those gentlemen who are sitting underneath the tree, they have been digging the grave of the late Ambassador Mthethwa. You can still see that those preparations are still in full swing. A lot of activity within the Mthethwa homestead, where those preparations for his final resting place are still underway. You'll know and remember that the late ambassador spent the night here after his mortal remains were fetched from the mortuary in Mpangeni, and a lot of the proceedings are being taken over by the Shembe Church, which is, a church that the Mthethwa family belonged to. A lot of rites taking place. A tent had been erected outside, just outside the gates of the home where his casket was taken out, and a private ceremony was undertaken before his coffin could enter the actual homestead, and a continuous prayer and the laying of that coffin on a straw mat to continuously pray for the spirit of Nathi Mthethwa. And for the part of bringing condolences to the family, President Cyril Ramaphosa will start off here before making his way to the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Complex in Dondota. He will be a part of the cortege that leaves here from the Mthethwa homestead. And on that note, let's bring in the Deputy Government Spokesperson, William Baloyi, to talk about, the importance of having the President come here first before the start of the Special Official Funeral Category 2.
Thank you very much, Zianda. As you have also captured it correctly, the processes and cultures in South Africa, as we are a multicultural society, obviously comes with its own ways of doing things. What is going to happen, as you have shown it on your footage, in this part, in the Mthethwas, most of their people are buried in the homestead. So what is going to happen is that the cortege, the body will leave from the homestead. Obviously, yes, as we have indicated, we expect a prayer between 7:30 and 8 o'clock. There will be a prayer, and then the cortege will leave to the stadium. And the very important aspect of it is that they don't bury midday. So which means that we either going to finish before 12, and if it's before 12, after, then we have to bury after 12, and we are going to leave the stadium to come back to the homestead where the burial will take place. Yes, it's quite important for the president and the deputy president will all be here, including, of course, the cabinet ministers and other delegates, including, of course, we've got confirmation of a representative of UNESCO, but also the different ambassadors and high commissioners that will be here, including, of course, the province, the premier, and the municipality. So that on its own, it shows the stature that we are giving to the late Ambassador Emmanuel Nkosinathi Mthethwa. Nathi, as he was affectionately known, but also in line with making sure that our official funeral, as the president has declared a special official funeral category B, but we infuse it with also the requirements of the culture that is here. You would also see at the stadium where we have made also space where there are no chairs to accommodate how the church that you just referred to, it's conducting its own thing and how they sit. You don't put chairs, they sit on the floor, as we have indicated also that the coffin, it's now on a mat inside there. So that is also the importance of the multicultural society that we live in South Africa, but also how the government has to adjust its own processes to respect those cultures.
So in essence, the president cutting short his travels to Ireland and Brussels to be able to form part of the proceedings and deliver that eulogy.
We might not get into the exact program of the president. It's safe to say, yes, the president prioritized this funeral. Hence, also, as you might be aware, also the DP was also out of the country and the president, but they then prioritized and gave honor to come home to honor this giant of government, but also our esteemed ambassador. He was serving in Europe, which means that the importance that he played in also being a mirror through which people should see South Africa was quite important, and hence also the presence of both the president and the deputy president here.
And are you able to confirm whether there's anyone from the French embassy, South Africa's embassy in France, I should say, that are coming? I mean, he was an ambassador, so he would have also worked with a lot of staffers and those around him in assisting him with his duties, as well as, other fraternal relations that he would have built over time.
Yeah, I think I can confirm that the office in Paris, in France, would be here. The staff, some of the staff members that were there, including, of course, what you can simply say deputy ambassador there, they will be here to make sure that they bid farewell to a representative of this great country.
All right. So William Baloyi is the deputy government spokesperson, just talking about what's going to be taking place. He is here preparing for the burial of Nathi Mthethwa, who is going to be laid to rest in his family homestead, Mthethwa. Let's show you once more what's taking place. As you would have heard that at 7:30 a prayer service is going to get underway. At 7:30, that prayer service, we anticipate that the president might also form part of it, and you can see that from the side of the family, there's lots that is taking place throughout the week. You would have also, and you'll recall that many of those who would arrive here at the homestead would also bring cows as a form of respect to Mthethwa, who would have been the head of a household. That is the level of respect that is given to a patriarch in the isiZulu culture. So this is where things stand for now, as we are going to continue bringing tributes. I can also see from the side of my eyes that Malusi Gigaba, a close friend of Nathi Mthethwa, who was also a groomsman, if my memory serves me well, at his wedding, also arriving here earlier. So he'll form part of that particular prayer service that is going to take place before the cortege leaves for the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Complex. Let's take you now to that very venue where my colleagues Tolim Gambi and Isletiwe Ndlovu are ready and waiting for what's to take place this morning.
Ziana Ngobo, thank you very much indeed. And as you've mentioned, we're live for you at the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Ground here in Kwambonambi. As you hear in the background, the testing of the microphones, just to make sure that everything is fine in terms of the PA system. The mourners, we have yet to see people arrive here. The people that are still milling around, members of the media, people like myself and Sletiwe Ndlovu, including the officials that are making sure that all the necessary checks are done. Let's just talk about the weather for a little bit. Today, it is, if you look at your weather app, as people who live around phones nowadays, there is a chance of rain, 40%, but as things are right now, the sky is slightly clear. We'll see how the day goes. And of course, rain in the African culture is seen as good omen, and that will perhaps form part and parcel of the farewell to Nathi Mthethwa as his body is committed to the ground. Let's talk about his life in the public service, because that's what he has been known for. This is a special official funeral category 2, and that is accorded to people who have had a distinguished career, particularly in the public service. And talking about his life in the public service, the first time that Nathi Mthethwa entered Parliament as a member of that House was in 2002, 2008, in September to be exact. That's when he then is able to hold or appointed to the first cabinet post that he ever held, and that was under the caretaker president, Kgalema Motlanthe, and that would have been as Minister of State Security, no, Minister of Safety and Security. State Security is a completely different department. And then that department was renamed in 2009. This is when President Jacob Zuma officially takes the reins as president of the country, and the ministry is changed into the Ministry of Police, and he would hold that position from 2008 up until I think it was 2014 onwards, all the way up until 2023. That's when he is Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. And I'm painting this picture for you just to show you how much of a public life that Nathi Mthethwa has had, the commitment to public service, that is, and it is fitting, therefore, that this kind of honor is accorded to him as he is laid to rest. Well, talking about his life in the public service is perhaps the opportune time to bring into the conversation my colleague Sletiwe Ndlovu. Sletiwe, it's going to be a very difficult conversation between you and I because of the blaring sound in the background. But let's talk about some of his comrades who have had to remember Nathi Mthethwa, and one of those people that you've had the opportunity to talk about and talk to is Malusi Gigaba, whom we hear is already at the house this morning. Talk us through how he has remembered his close friend, not only a comrade.
I think let's do our viewers justice, Rolly, and actually go to Ziyanda Ngobo, who's actually with Malusi Gigaba at this particular moment at the Mthethwa homestay. Let's have a listen to that conversation.
Thank you very much, team, coming from the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Complex. And you're not seeing me on shots just yet because we're still bringing you those live visuals of all the movements taking place inside the Mthethwa homestead. And as you can see, preparations are well underway to ensure that by the time the program is done and they return to this particular particular area that Nathi Mthethwa's final resting place is prepared for him. We understand, and you would have heard from Deputy Government Spokesperson Willie Baloy telling us that the President and Deputy President will be here to also pay their final respects to the late ambassador to France. And you would have heard there'll be various high commissioners that come to pay their last respects, a delegation from UNESCO and many others who would have worked with him in various capacities. And so as I come into shot now to have this conversation, let's bring in Malusi Gigaba, who is someone who knows Nathi Mthethwa very well and would have been a part of actually revitalizing the ANC Youth League structures here in KZN. Thanks for your time, Mr. Malusi, Dr. Malusi Gigaba. It's been quite the journey. You've been paying tribute to Mthethwa throughout the last couple of days, through this difficult time where there's also lots of discussion about what might have happened. As you prepare with South Africans and the President and the Deputy President to pay your final respects, what's going through your mind right now, given just how well and close you were to Nyambos?
You know, it has come to an end. His life has come to an end in confusing circumstances, and yet it is what it is. We accept what has happened. We didn't expect that we would part ways in this fashion, but it has happened. We are grateful for his life, for the manner in which he lived it, for the example he set for us, the love he showed us, the love he showed our country, the service he gave to South Africa. We remember him as an extraordinary South African who gave his all for our freedom. And for that, we wish him eternal rest. We wish that his family will find comfort and that our nation will find a way to move on, to learn significant lessons from his life and his teachings, because he was not only a freedom fighter, somebody who struggled for freedom. He also was an educator who tried to show us what type of South Africa we need to build and what type of people we need to be as agents for social change.
As someone who also would have had access to the family, in particular his widow, could you perhaps share what she is like at this point? We naturally understand that she is grieving, but with all the steps that she would have taken, leaving France with his mortal remains, arriving at OR Tambo, and then from OR Tambo to King Shaka, and finally here and receiving his remains yesterday. As you've said, we've come to the end.
It's an experience I don't wish on anyone, because not only did she have to carry his mortal remains back home, she also was to be among the first to see his body lying lifeless and in a manner that has left deep anguish and confusion, not only for her, but for all of us. And so the experience, the traumatic experience that she has had to go through is something that is going to live with her for the rest of her life. And all her memories will not only be about Nathi, her boyfriend, Nathi, her fiancé, Nathi, her husband, but they will also contain this last experience of his last days and the experience of having to carry his mortal remains back home to the land that he loved, for which he fought so much and gave his all. And so she is in deep anguish, she is in deep pain and grief, but she is fortified by all the support that she has received. I wish that we would allow the family, and her in particular, an opportunity to grieve so that they go through this, because we couldn't ask her to be strong at this stage. It is us who must be strong for her, for his children and the family. As for them, they need to grieve, because it's the only way they will heal.
And how important is it that the president and the deputy president, the two most senior people in the country really, are also going to first start off here at the home before making their way to the special official funeral?
It speaks of the special person that Comrade Nathi was, and the bonds of affection he had developed in the course of his work, how South Africans, especially the top leadership, viewed him. Nathi was as comfortable filing among the ranks as he was in leading from the forefront. The fact that the president and deputy president are going to come to the family is a statement of support to the family that the nation is giving to this family, because without him, we wouldn't have known of his family. He has endeared his family to South Africa and to all freedom fighters. And for that, we are grateful for his life and the example that he set for us.
Dr. Malusi Gigaba, a very close friend and comrade of the late Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa. So we are getting closer to that 7:30 start for the prayer service, and that's why he is already here. And that's where there'll be a short prayer where the president is also expected to arrive here to form part of that particular prayer service. And this is where the family will be leaving from, and then at around 8:45 is when we anticipate that the cortege will leave, and a 9 o'clock start to that special official funeral, starting off with the national anthem. And that's where Xolim Gambi and Sletiwe Ndlovu continue to bring us more coverage on what's taking place from their side. Team, from where I am, there is a lot of movement, but perhaps show us a little bit more of what's happening where you are.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Zianda Ngobo. In fact, we're going to show you exactly what you have sought to paint when the procession gets to the Siyabonga Sangweni Sports Ground. Sletiwe Ndlovu and myself are going to move just slightly out of shot, just so that you're able to see exactly what's going to happen once the procession gets here. The main entrance that you see here, particularly that square shape that is draped in white with the portraits of the late ambassador, that is where the cortege is going to stop, and the draping of the coffin will be in ANC colors. That will then be changed into the South African flag, signifying that the government is now taking over. And before the coffin is led inside that particular entrance, we are told by William Baloyi that there will be some cultural aspects that are performed by the family, and we think that again signifies the guiding of the spirit. And then once that is done, the coffin is then led up until the platform where Nathi Mthethwa's mortal remains will then be stationed up until the service starts. And so let's continue with my colleague Sletiwe Ndlovu, the conversation, Sletiwe, about reflections. People have had lots to say, particularly family members. I'd like for us to just, for a moment, talk about his political life, because the memorial services that we have observed in the lead up to today have not only been about memorializing Nathi Mthethwa, but they have also been about how the ANC ought to revisit itself, because it's a party in trouble. It's not only in decline, but there are issues of corruption that beset it. Let's talk for a moment about what you remember of these memorial services that have been held. I'll reflect on the final one that was held by the ANC here in Mpangeni and tell you what was said there, but there was one that was held in Parktown. What were the reflections of the people of his political party, Nathi Mthethwa's political home, the ANC?
Well, from the conversations, not only just the memorial service, but also just from the conversations that we've had with his comrades, Koli, he has been described as a true leader within the ANC. Of course, we know that he rose to prominence within the ANC Youth League. We've had many conversations with some of those comrades from the ANC Youth League. You're looking at the likes of Malusi, Gigaba. We also had a conversation with Dumsani Ngema. Another conversation, not a conversation rather, but if you look at some of those pictures from back then when they were part of that group, you can also see the likes of Cyril Gigaba, who's now the mayor, of course, of eThekwini, and a few people that I won't mention that have also left the ANC do pop up in those pictures. But of course, as you've stated, you can't speak of Ambassador Nathi Mthethwa without speaking about his immense contribution within the ANC. A lot of people also speaking about how he was quite passionate about political education. I'm not sure if that's a conversation that you've also had with some of his comrades. You're
absolutely right, Sleti Windlovu, because the conversation about Nathi Mthethwa and his almost lifelong commitment to political education, and this is something that the ANC has sought to prioritize as they see the decline of the party, because the complaint is that the ANC seems concerned only with people enriching themselves using the vehicle ANC, and so the whole talk about renewing the party and making sure that there is the development, as they would put it, of the cadre, is to try and imbue what it means to be an ANC member. You are an activist, you are a volunteer, a community volunteer who needs to make sure that in your little corner where you are, yours is in service of that particular community. But as we know, the ANC and its people right now, I mean, the person who really goes to the heart of the problem is former President Thabo Mbeki, when he talks about how the ANC ought to be audited to find out who really is the member of the ANC today. And I think it's part of the reason why people like former police minister, someone who actually held this very portfolio of police, when he was speaking in Parktown, in Pinetown, he has been the subject of social media lampooning because of his cry, and legitimately so, that people of South Africa have lost their humanity. How do you make fun of a person who has not even been laid to rest yet and drawing images of him in the most, I don't want to even be descriptive about it. Do you remember that speech?
I remember the speech. I remember the pictures, and I also don't want to go into, how insensitive they were. And that's really what Begicele spoke about, even during that memorial service, how insensitive and inhumane we've all become. But I know there was another conversation just yesterday that we had with the ANC KZN PTT, the coordinator, that's being Mike Mabuya Khuluwe. The ANC acknowledges, that they need to recover lost votes. They need to rebuild. But I think one of the biggest questions also going forward is, dare I say, you have the local government elections coming up next year. A big question in terms of how that's going to work out for them in this province, especially now that we know that they've lost someone who was part of, leading and building the ANC within the province of KZN.
You're absolutely correct. The members of the ANC have sought to use this platform, the memorial services that have taken place, not only to speak about Nathi Mthethwa and his contribution, but also importantly to say, take the ANC back to its people. It's not yours and my party. This is the instruction to members of the ANC. As we talk, we see the vehicles, the convoys of the dignitaries, if I could put it that way. They are parking just behind us, and so perhaps one of our colleagues is going to turn his camera as we do that, and we will see exactly who is going to emerge. But as we continue the conversation, they've sought to use these platforms to say, let's take the ANC back to the people, because this is a movement of the people. That's what the narrative is and has been. And perhaps whilst we do that, in fact, the person that has just emerged out of the vehicle is Phindile Baleni. She is the Director General in the presidency. As we wave to her, she is here, and you will understand why the president is going to be delivering the eulogy here. And so it makes sense that you have someone in the form of the Director General in the presidency, Phindile Baleni, coming through. Let's take a listen for a moment. Let's remind the viewers what some of these ANC leaders have been saying as they try to memorialize Nathi Mthethwa. I think Fikile Mbalula is one of those that we have spoken to. Let's take a listen for a moment.
We in the ANC have lost a giant, have lost a great leader of our movement. Leadership is not defined in terms of positions. Your deeds and character define leadership. Comrade Nathi, as much as he was privileged at some point to lead the ANC at all levels of our organization, regional up until the national level, and was also baptized in revolutionary fires. He was a gallant fighter in the true sense of the meaning of the word gallant.
All right, that is the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Fikile Mbalula there. Lele, you and I are going to have to press the pause button for a moment, and it is the reason we're doing that is to take you back to the family homestead, Ziyanda Ngobo. You are with Mama Joy, and this is someone who probably is going to also share some fond memories of Nathi Mthethwa, and I suspect it is the French chapter that you're likely to get into.
That's right, and you'll recall that, Mama Joy is a fervent soccer fan. She's not someone who's unfamiliar to our screens, but it was during Nathi Mthethwa's tenure as Arts and Culture Minister where she traveled to France and was part of being, a fan there. It did have a bit of controversy, but I'm just going to let Mama Joy speak on that and start off by telling us how you will be remembering Nathi Mthethwa as someone who you've openly said, gave you support as someone who was a familiar face, but he really took your sort of your support, your consistency in giving support to our soccer players more seriously than maybe others did.
Yeah. Ngiyajabula mina ukuthi ngibe lana ene kula ngifanele ngibe khona namhlanje ukuthi ngizovalelisa ubaba uMthethwa uminister mina ngimbiza uminister noba manje bekuyi ambassador ubaba Mthethwa mina ngisebenze naye kusase uminister wesport. I remember lesesikhathi seCovid abantu bekumele sibiyele stadium istadium bezivaliwe wangifonela athi ngicela ube party ya drive yami ye vaccine abantu balento bazobuyela stadium kumele ba vaccinate babuyela stadium ngambe naye like sisonke boma 9 stadium 9 provinces ngihamba naye sitshela abantu ukuthi sifuna ukubuyela stadium abahambe beyo vaccinate. Ubaba Mthethwa ngisebenze naye kufana nakuthi it was like a brother. I remember mangiye France 2019 abantu bayazibuza ukuthi ngihambe nobani. Mina 2019 ngasendwa upresident ye-country ubaba uCyril Ramaphosa athi ngihambe naye uminister wathi mara mama Jo uyi-1 uzokhona lento le because kube supporta kumele nicule ni-group ngithi ungawari minister wena wait and see masifika eParis mina ngihamba naye wafika wathi and then ngathi minister ngicela ubhele ngihambe ngiye e-Eiffel Tower ucabanga ukuthi hayi ngiyothatha ama picture vele ngithi hayi ngifuna ukuyenza something wangivumela ngahamba ngiye e-Eiffel Tower mangifika lapha yana ngifaka i-dress yami ya South Africa nescarf sami sona lesi mangifika abantu bayeza bangibona mama Joy bayeza abantu laba base South Africa base Paris God ngibatshele ukuthi sine game yabanyana ngicela nizoza e-game ngithatha ama number abanye abantu nje nabase Paris nabantu ababuye eAfrica boBurkina Faso and then ngathola ukuthi ngina 200 supporters ngelanga labanyana then he was like ngiyababona manje abantu mama Jo ubathola phi labantu ukuthi ngitshelile minister ukuthi uzobona umhlolo ukuthi ngize nobani from South Africa it doesn't matter umama Jo uyaziwa yonke indawo and then support abanyana and it was a history because banyana be qualify for the first time imagine ngihamba naye and then is ngaphinda futhi ngoba azoba iambassador eParis eFrance ya la eSouth Africa wafika I was in France nami ngise Paris samlanda airport ngamreceiver ezoba iambassador yase France and ningakhohlwa phela mina ngithi nginendoda eFrance
and that's where you met uPapa Joy isn't it?
Yes. So with yena angifuna ukuhamba manga uyena ngingathi ugrume umama Joy kudlula most of the ministers ye-sport ngiya understand uminister Mbalula wafika waqala wa honora women in sport I was part of it but ubaba Mthethwa makafika hila ngi-enjoy khona kakhulu ukuba yi-supporter cause bekangregard as a stakeholder uyabona makangitshela ukuthi mama Joy you're no longer like a mere fan you are more like a stakeholder when we do something sport you have to be there and I was there for him he was there for me so noma abantu basho bathi hayi mama Jo benefite kakhulu ngesikhathi sesenathi not ukuthi ngibenefite kakhulu neSouth Africa ibenefite kakhulu ngoba la bengihamba khona bengirepresenta iSouth Africa
because I mean there's also that aspect where the people felt guilty and then kwafika another minister who felt that well actually there's no value in what Mama Joy is doing but Nathi Mthethwa saw it.
Angifuna ukunicambela manga uyabona la even if bengize ngebhasi from Soweto eJohannesburg ngizofika la bengizofika ukuthi ngizovalelisa because namhlanje wonke umuntu uyamazi uMama Joy because of him and yena bekangivelua as umuntu beka representa iSouth Africa not just a super fan or just a fan efikile elapha so for mina angifuni ukuhamba manga ngithi ngilahlekelwe vele ngoba namanje ngoba bekuyiambassador yaseFrance bengifika eCDG ngivele ngithi hey minister I have landed sengikhona ngila athi ayidlula embassy ungibone yabona ngidlule ngimbone ngiya la ngiyakhona just because manje vele Paris nami si together so angazi manje ukuthi ubani azoba lapha yana and yabona ukuthi yastarta ku sport manje kuyiambassador la nami ngikhona because nami yabona ngithi bonjour comment ça va so
Thank you so much, Mama Joy. A little bit of jubilation here, really, to celebrate the life and times of Nathi Mthethwa. Super fan, Mama Joy, reflecting on how, you know, it was Nathi Mthethwa who began treating her more like a stakeholder than a soccer super fan, and, you know, reflecting on how she had gone to Paris in 2019 to support Banyana. And that's where she met her husband, Papa Joy, as he is affectionately known. And then, of course, now that he became ambassador to France, you know, that relationship was maintained. And so she says, come hell or high water, she was always going to come here to the Mthethwa homestead to pay her last respects to someone who she believes really supported her and her craft.
Zianda, thank you so much for that crossing. Indeed, some celebration in the celebrating of her life. That certainly played a significant role in quite a few people as well. And we'll continue to be doing that across the morning.